Hoka Challenger 8 road to trail option here. I've got a 2-mile lead in before I actually hit some dirt. Very smooth riding, very soft, very cushioned as I'm cruising on the hard concrete here. There is one very distinct ride feature and aspect about this shoe that I will get to as we go along here. First, let's talk about the specs. Right out the gate, 44 37 millimeter stack height, 44 under the heel, I repeat, 7 mil drop here. That stack height is something that I will talk about throughout this review. 4 feels massive. I did confirm that. I measured 43 at the heel. So yeah, there's just a lot under that heel, and we'll talk about how it feels and how it rides as we go along here. Got a size US 10 here, 9.9 ounces, 282 grams. Half size up is typical for me in Hoka, and fit is just on target compared to other Hoka models here. Coming back to the midsole here, it's one of Hoka's pretty standard compression molded EVA. It does actually have a nice bouncy, responsive feel out of the box. Definitely feels soft, cushy. I would say that just based on feel, this might be one that might be prone to packing out. Again, regular compression molded EVA here. Durability on those, they usually tend to mold to your foot quite a bit, and over time you'll have a somewhat customized fit right underneath your foot, but you'll likely lose a little bit of that cushion. But again, you do have 44 37 here, so you've got something to work with. Still kind of in an easy training mode here today. I was actually on the way out here on the pavement, concrete sidewalks, asphalt roads. I was actually dipping under 8 minutes per mile while I was just, trying to take it easy. Hit the dirt here, slight incline, and I'm a little under 8:30 pace, so I'm moving along quite well in this shoe, despite the fact that I'm trying to keep it easy. Nice and light day today. Really feel out the shoe, do this review. Obviously, putting a little more breath into my talking here, but cruising right along. Coming to a little bit of hard packed dry dirt here. This is pretty much ideal for the Challenger 8 right now. So before I go ahead, I want to get into a close-up right away, but my initial runs in this shoe, I was thinking, yeah, this is one of Hoka's most apparent Metarocker geometries. You really feel that landing point around the middle of the shoe and rocker roll forward through the ball of the foot and the toes. As I've started to run along in it, especially today, I'm really noticing the heel cushion in the shoe, and not just in the front of the heel, pretty far back. Doesn't feel like there's too much sag or sink in the heel cushion in this model. Really feel elevated there. That 7 mil drop is very apparent, and this is one of those shoes that is feeling like 7 mil, or even it feels like at least more than 7 mil, due to the fact that I don't feel my heel sinking down at all. Feels like it's pretty much up on a platform there, and I feel like I'm really on a continuous forward lean into the ball of the foot. If you followed some of my reviews, you might think or realize that this might not be an ideal setup for me, or a setup that I would favor, and I would say that's true. I am more of a midfoot striker, and I don't like a really heel focused geometry shoe or cushion, and this is definitely that. But I do find that I can get a little bit forward in terms of forward of the heel. So if I get my landings right around the middle of the foot, and actually it's really actually kind of hard, kind of feel like I'm forced into landing at the very front of the heel, rear edge of the midfoot in this shoe, and that's pretty much as optimal as I'm gonna get with my running style. But then when I do that, and that works well, especially on moderate descents, cruisy, soft, and efficient roll forward without having to put much, foot effort in. The geometry is really helping smooth things out and keep things rolling. Again, you've got that 44 under the heel, 37 under the forefoot, and just look at how massive that is under the heel. It's just a very, even looking at it through the rear, it looks like this is just feeling and visually super wide compared to the forefoot here. I really notice the depth of cushion and really the geometry of it clearly favors heel strikers. You could see the landing and compression right on there. It's great. If you're a heel striker and you really want to soften the blow of your landings here, this is an ideal shoe. You can see how it compresses and actually, bulbs out a little bit there. Really soaks up impact. It makes it kind of a little wobbly. I had some test runs where I was going down a little bit of a rocky path, and on descents, your heel's landing a little bit more, you're landing more on the heel, and that would introduce a little bit of a wobble for me. I think it's manageable, being that it's a wide base and you can kind of control it. But really, I just think everything is centered around this heel area in this shoe. You could see even the fit, it's wide back here, but the whole shoe seems to kind of funnel forward into the toe box here. I actually have to keep this a little bit loose. I'm sized up in a 10 again. This kind of narrows a little bit here. It is reminiscent of some of the Speed Goat fits that don't work for me, but I think this kind of knit mesh upper here, it seems to allow a little bit more flex. It has a little bit more give to some of those kind of more TPU-ish or plasticky Speed Goat uppers that would really kind of have that torpedo shape and really squeeze the foot over here. This one seems to be at least a little bit looser, so it's manageable for me. It doesn't have that real, I find some of the Mafate models, Mafate 5 like that, it kind of, I feel like it does kind of round out around the ball of the foot. This one has a slight taper. It doesn't come to a point in the front of the toe box though, so size 10 is perfect for me. If I had a 9.5, what I would say is true to size, I might have a little squeeze here or there, but again, I do go a half size up in Hoka, and this is my toe right here, so I have a full thumbs width, maybe a very touch less than a full thumbs in a US 10. That's what you want in a trail shoe, so sizing is good here. Very plush around the heel here, reminds me of the Craft shoe that I was testing, also the On Cloud Surfer Trail 2. Just very plush, big cushion around the heel, a little bit of swoop collar here. Tongue padding is, let's take a look here. Yes, well padded. This is just a pretty standard setup here from Hoka. No gusset actually in the tongue, which is fine. The upper wraps around over the top of the foot well, and I don't notice foot sliding at all. Again, regular setup with the tongue here. No issues with height. You can see the kind of comfort around this collar. Heel cup is adequate. Taking a look at the heel counter. A little bit stiffer in the back on the sides. I would say semi-stiff. Really, nothing really to worry about there. You see the outsole here. It is a road to trail shoe, but I think they leaned a little bit more into the trail outsole here. The last Challengers I ran in were version 5 and 6, and they had squarish, flattish lugs, and I thought they were okay for trails. Light trails, of course, no problem, but this one has, the shape of them, and the 4mm depth does give you some bite on trails. So if you were looking into this as a dedicated trail shoe, easy to moderate, you wouldn't have a problem with traction. Again, compression molded EVA here. Just look how soft this is, and see how I squeeze it here. It kind of even bulbs out in the middle. Very flexible shoe. There's no plate in there, nothing to interfere with the softness of the midsole. And you can see it's kind of, they have this midsole area exposed here, and that's really it is depth of the outsole lugs. As you can see, it's not like it's recessed and the outsole lugs are kind of taking up the space. That's what kind of, the landing point I find to be right here under the area where there is no outsole, which is kind of interesting. It's just a really rounded setup here where you kind of just land and roll into your stride, and there's no protection there. So especially if you're running in like rocky trails, I don't think this would be the ideal shoe to run in rocky trails like that. But for sandy stuff, gravel, dirt, I don't think it would wear down too much. This is also not Vibram Mega Grip rubber, so you're not going to get that level of durability. We'll see how it holds up over time, but disconnected all through here, no connections. It's a very flexible shoe underfoot. It just feels, it goes with the overall feel of the soft midsole to have this outsole segmented like this and really have a lot of flex around. It's just overall comfortable to run in, but again, you can see here and you can see kind of the geometry probably from the side, how it's rounded here. It's really oriented around right here. I did quickly check the specs on my last pair of Challenger 6s. I had 29, 24 listed for the stack, 5 mil drop, so they've notably, I don't know what they did in actually version 7, but in version 8 here, they're up 2 mil in drop. I think those measurements there might have been before Hoka started revising their measurements and including everything from the bottom of the foot to the ground. So I would probably add 5 or 6 to that. So that would still put it at, say, 34.29. So you are significantly up in stack height from those older versions. I do recall with those version 5 and 6 Challenger versions, I felt like they might have been a little wider in the forefoot. Not certain on that, but I do remember, again, getting back to this compression molded EVA midsole, they did seem to pack out a bit. And I do recall after a bit of a break-in period, them feeling a little bit thin at the forefoot. So I think one plus of going up in stack here, at least for me personally, as a midfoot striker, is that even though that compression molded EVA is going to compress a bit over time, you're still starting off with 37 mil at the forefoot. So even with a fair bit of compression, it's not going to feel completely flat under the foot. Even now, I feel pretty cushioned under the forefoot, but it's really hard to make a distinct feel on it because the heel feels so much more. Normally I would say, oh, a shoe feels pretty balanced or not, and whether or not I felt the forefoot cushioning was adequate. But in this model, it's definitely not balanced. It's definitely heel oriented, but again, I do feel like I have enough under the forefoot. It's just kind of hard to gauge because there's so much more under the heel. I'm gonna go ahead and loop over the other side here. Bit of a steep section climbing up here and then a little down on the other side. Get a little test in on the feel up and down. And I did test the shoe with a little bit more agile running, but I really don't have this pegged as that style of shoe. I feel like it's squarely positioned as a road to trail shoe, and that's squarely what it is, despite the fact that it does have those lugs. I think the geometry, the kind of bulbousness of it under the front of the heel, around the heel, the middle of the foot, it makes it a little bit unwieldy or a little bit soft and wobbly when you're going through rocks and technical sections if you choose to. My test track today, I feel, is more apt and in line with where you want to bring this shoe. A little bit of a steep section here. Again, less under the forefoot, more cush under the heel. It's easy to climb up, aside from the softness. You know, you're fighting a little bit of squish when you're climbing up there, but geometry works going uphill. Flex in the shoe, that twistiness underfoot, when I was contouring it at that close-up there, on the uphill, does seem to grab underfoot as you put pressure into it, which kind of nice for a cruisy shoe. Protection as you would expect. There's no plate in the mix. A lot of these rocks, bumpy things. Going uphill's not so bad, but going down, you'll want to be careful on the forefoot because there's plenty of cush under the heel to absorb it. But again, I talk about that contouring feeling good on a smooth climb. On a rocky descent, that contouring is going to allow a lot of these bumps to get through, especially to your forefoot. So be wary of that. 37 mil here, but again, soft foam, no plate, very flexy. It's not going to be overly protective. It's not paper thin, okay? So you're not feeling every little small pebble, but once you start coming down something like this, you will feel it. Coming down through that rocky section there, definitely, as expected, if I could center my landings around the middle of the foot, rear of the foot there, I was definitely able to absorb some of those rocks, but it makes it feel a little bit wobbly. It makes you feel a little unstable for sure. And anytime I would kind of get up on the forefoot or roll forward onto the forefoot over a rock or protrusion, then I would really feel the impact at the ball of the foot. So kind of what I thought would happen there, and that's really what you're getting with this shoe. Again, one of the reasons I don't see this as a real technical or moderate trail shoe if they are rocky. Rolling downhill now, this is a smooth, moderate grade here, and this is where the Challenger 8 eats it up. Then you could really hammer that cushion there and roll through. Feels great and soft, efficient coming down here. I just reviewed the On Cloudsurfer Trail 2, and I think it's probably apt to talk about the difference in cushion between this shoe and that one. That one, everything is centered under the arch. Very full feeling under the arch. Heel seems to sit a little bit deeper in the shoe, and you just feel like you're really, no matter what you want to roll, land, everything off of that arch. This one, the cushion, again, really centered under the heel. Feels like a kind of a steady slope from the heel, maybe a touch into the rear of the arch front of the heel area, but really you feel like you're definitely up on that 7 mil drop in the back of this shoe. So different kinds of feel of cushion underfoot between these two models. So you can choose, you know, based on your preference, if you like that full feeling under the arch and maybe a more kind of surfy feel in the middle, or if you're definitely a heel striker and you want that heel cush, you got the Challenger here. So thank you for tuning in once again to Humble Running. Hope you enjoyed this review. Click straight into the road trail market here with the Challenger 8. I think it will work well, especially for heel strikers. Maybe if you're a midfoot striker and you don't mind landing a little far back. I'm actually on the road right now, and it does kind of, I feel like it's almost forcing me to land back on that heel section. I mean, it just almost feels like it doesn't want to land anywhere else. So I got that bounce, that maybe forward heel landing going, for me at least here. Interested in seeing any comparisons with the shoe, let me know down in the comments below. Check out my best cushion video. I did not have this shoe in time when I was filming that one. I may have to do another cushion roundup, because if you've seen the channel recently, I do have a lot of cushioned options in at the moment and more on the way. So like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Save yourself 10% off at thefeed.com. Go to www.humblerunning.com. Sign up for my newsletter. Don't miss a thing. Have a great day out on the trails, and I'll see you in the next one.